Let's talk more about these threats against Western malls by al-Shabaab. Joining me is Peter Pham. He's the director of the Atlantic Council's Africa Center. Peter, you and I had a chance to chat before we went on the air here, but I was looking at the numbers between 2006 and 2011. More than 20 Somali Americans from the Twin Cities disappeared, went off to Somalia to get involved in fighting for al-Shabaab. So this really is kind of a concern, isn't it?
Yes, and it's not just the ones who went that we know about, but it's also the infrastructure that enabled them, the facilitators, the recruiters, and those who raise money for Shabaab. The U.S. Justice Department has prosecuted a number of individuals for material support of terrorism in this area. Now, while the vast majority of Somali Americans don't have anything to do with this extremism, unfortunately, there are corners of that community where these people have found refuge.
And a lot of these young people who went, the parents were unaware that they were even going. Some of them were recruited by a janitor at a mosque. I mean, how do you infiltrate? How do you stop that if you're authorities?
Well, you first have to work very closely with the community, and really the first line of policing is the community. But if you're an authority, you also have a responsibility to look at the bigger problem. We've been very quick to proclaim Shabaab's military defeat, but it's in the process, it's been transforming itself into more and more of a terrorist organization.
The Kenyan government dismissed the video. Here's a quote. They're using propaganda to legitimize what cannot be legitimized. It's kind of easy to dismiss it, but I imagine it's still a matter of concern. And again, trying to prevent something like this is very difficult. I mean, just a lone wolf can create a lot of chaos. We've seen that recently.
And this is where Shabaab's leaders, this is the bet they're making. They've been hit very hard militarily. U.S. intelligence has improved, and in fact, several leaders, including the late emir of Shabaab, Ahmed Godani, have been taken down by U.S. attacks in just the last 6 months. But now they're making a pass. They're trying to call out incite violence because they only have to succeed with one lone wolf and they can proclaim a great victory.
You know, it's interesting. You look at ISIS, you look at Boko Haram, you look at this group, and it seems like the more provocative, the more outlandish, the more ghoulish, the more attention you get. Is this an attention-seeking device, or is this really legitimate? I guess that's how you have to kind of measure this. And you're an expert on this sort of thing. How do you look at it?
I think it's a little bit of both. Certainly, they're trying to get attention. They're being ignored. Boko Haram has gotten a lot of the attention to extremism in Africa, and more recently, the affiliates of the so-called Islamic State in Libya. And so Boko Haram's feeling a little forgotten. So this is a cry for attention. At the same time, it's also a cry that there is a community, and within the community, there are some for whom this will resonate, and that's what the terrorists are gambling on. That's what they're betting on, is they find that one disaffected, disturbed individual and use that person to raise their profile and standing in the extremist community.
Let me ask you about 9/11, because when we look back at 9/11 and we think about al-Qaeda, in some ways it almost looks like the good old days. I mean, that was just al-Qaeda. You had like one face. Now you've got all these different little groups all over the place. How come, and how much of a concern is that?
I think it increasingly is a concern because we no longer have one group you have to play whack-a-mole. And these groups are sprouting up. What's driving them is this media attention. What's driving them is this ability to outdo each other in horror and brutality. And so it's a race to the bottom. And it's a race, unfortunately, where the more lethal, the more brutal, the more unscrupulous get ahead. And that's a very dangerous dynamic.
All right, Peter Pham, always a delight to have you in. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.